Welcome to the Nazareth University Centennial Podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Nealand, and in each episode, I'll be guiding you through stories of amazing alumni, fascinating faculty, or the hidden history of the university. Today's episode is about the Nazareth University Fulbright program. The Fulbright program was established in 1946 with an ambitious goal: to increase mutual understanding and support friendly and peaceful relations between the people of the United States and the people of other countries. Fulbright grants are awarded to Americans to teach or study abroad, as well as to international students and faculty to teach or study at American universities. For decades, this small liberal arts university has exceeded all other colleges and universities of its size in producing an extraordinary number of Fulbright scholars. But what makes Nazareth's program so successful? And how have these experiences transformed the lives of students and faculty who ventured abroad? In this episode, we'll hear from Fulbright recipients who traveled to places as diverse as Germany, South Korea, India, South Africa, Colombia. Their stories reveal not just personal transformation, but a powerful model of cultural exchange that is now more than ever relevant. Let's start with what made Nazareth University such a Fulbright powerhouse. Certainly, between the late 1990s and to the present, Nazareth consistently produced Fulbright winners, and an impressive feat for a university of our size. Shannon Olson, who attended from 95 to 99, remembers how early the conversation started.
Actually, it was very early on in my freshman year. I think it would have been in 1996. So at the end of my freshman year, one of the faculty at the time, William Lauer, who was one of the chemistry professors, he pulled me aside and he said, you're doing quite well, and we have a very successful program in the Fulbright program, and if you apply yourself well and work really hard, you might be able to apply for that. So it actually became a little bit of a goal for me.
That early identification and mentoring was crucial, but it wasn't just about academic excellence. Mary Lawrence, who graduated in 2015 with a double major in French and German.
It was definitely a very normal thing in the German program. And I think everyone who graduated in like the 3 years before me also went to Germany on a Fulbright. Started seeing the process when I was even a freshman and sophomore. I would sit with the upper class students because I was a member of German Club and later became the president of it. But I was, involved in German Club. And so I saw these other students talking about applying.
Notice that it was normalized, expected even, and behind this culture was dedicated faculty support.
Well, I remember it being difficult to distill who you are as a person into just 2 short pages. It's a really short application. I mean, there's the kind of the questionnaire type intake information that you give, but that's not really a lot about what you want out of the program and but then you write these 2 really, really short essays that are supposed to wildly impress the panel. And so it takes a lot of time. You're really laboring over periods and punctuation and word choice in order to fit as much as you can into a small space.
Professors in Asian studies at the time, who I think is Nevin Fisher. So he helped me, and also Professor Madigan was the Fulbright coordinator at that time. They helped me with my application and my essay.
The intensive support, the multiple drafts, the faculty feedback, the culture of encouragement, that's what set Nazareth apart. But it wasn't just for undergraduates. Dr. Scott Campbell, a philosophy professor, received a teaching Fulbright to Hungary in 2008. He describes how faculty were also encouraged to apply.
So I had a Fulbright Hayes grant in 2005. That was to do an educational tour of the continent of Australia. It was in the summer of 2005. So I had experience with the Fulbright program from going to Australia. And then I had a sabbatical coming up, and I wanted to do something international. And the Fulbright program encourages you to talk to your Center for International Education. I wanted to go to Hungary. I knew that I wanted to go to Hungary. But Hungary was open to philosophy. I was very interested in going to Hungary, and as it happens, at the time, the head of our Center for International Education was Hungarian. So I went and I talked to him.
This wasn't just about sending students abroad. It was about creating a community of global scholars, both students and faculty, who had carried these experiences forward. So where did these Fulbrighters go? And what did they do? The diversity of destinations reflects the breadth of the Nazareth community's interests. Let's start with Jamie Lipke, who went to South Korea in 2008 for an English teaching assistantship.
And there were a couple places like Taiwan, Korea. Korea just seemed like totally new. France was my first time going abroad anywhere ever. So it was like a really big change to come to Asia. And that was in 2008. It was still like pre smartphones everywhere, pre everything like that. So yeah, I went over there with a little flip phone, and it was a big change. But the Fulbright program is like, at the time, it was very, very well supported. So we had a 2-week it was like 6 weeks of orientation, language classes, and culture, history, everything like that.
Wow, 6 weeks of orientation. That's significant support. And James' experience had lasting impact. She eventually moved back to South Korea, married someone she met there, and now has a daughter growing up in the country. And not all Fulbrighters went to teach English. Eric Eggleston received a research fellowship to India in 2003 to 2004, studying 19th century Islamic education movements.
Was there something about this 19th century Islamic education movement, which was a more secular oriented? The founder had gone off to Cambridge and Oxford and studied those models, and then kind of brought it back to India as a more still religiously oriented, but more secular basis. And as the project evolved, there was I would call it an intercultural dialogue going on between the more traditional religiously oriented the Deoband movement, and then this Aligarh movement, and they were debating, and they were great journals that were unique access there at the universities. And so I was really studying that as a kind of a 19th century reaction to a traditional education model in the reaction to the British colonial period, et cetera, and pitched that might have some relevance to present day at that time. We're talking about the slightly post 9/11 era. A war in Iraq was raging, so this was it was a kind of hot, packageable topic at the time.
Eric's timing was significant. Being in India during that period gave him unique perspectives. He describes a particularly memorable encounter.
As the resident American, or the only American many folks encountered, they would put tough questions to you. And I found very much contextualizing a lot of decision-making process in the American political system. And at that time, the war in Iraq, things that I had literally protested against, but I found myself explaining it in a much more complete way to someone who wasn't familiar. And that now looking back, it was really good training for being in the State Department.
We'll come back to Eric's career trajectory later because it's a powerful example of how Fulbright experiences shape professional paths. But now let's hear from Dr. Poonen Dev, who went to South Africa in 2008 as part of a Fulbright Hayes seminar focused on education and workforce development.
So in South Africa, in Johannesburg, we were taken to an elementary school. It was a very poor elementary school. And Mamelodi was in the township of Mamelodi. And when we went to the library, we saw that the library, they just got it ready. And there were shelves there. And I think if I remember correct, except for 2 bookshelves, the rest of them were completely empty. And I thought, library, you can't have empty shelves. So I talked to the librarian and I said, in America, a lot of these libraries give books away, when they have the Friends of the Library sale. Okay, so I told them, I said, there are so many libraries, as especially in the Rochester, Ithaca area, because my brother is a professor in Ithaca, so he's a professor at Cornell. So I knew, when I visited him, I know at Ithaca, they have Ithaca Friends of the Library sale, and Rochester, every township has, whether it's Ferreton or Pittsford or Henrietta or wherever, they have Friends of the Library sales, and on the last day, they give you, bags of books for like 50 cents or $3 or whatever it is. So I told them, I said, we can get lots of books. Would it be all right if I sent them to you? So they said, oh, yeah, that would be great. So I worked with some contacts that I had in the embassy, and I was able to ship with the help. First, we were able to collect, I involved Nazareth, the whole community. I sent out a message to students, faculty, and staff that anyone, can get these books. I said, we can't pay anything for it. I'll take care of the shipping, but if you can bring some books for us in good condition, gently used, and of course we had to say, no religious books and books that are appropriate for young children, all in English, no other language, because they were, they wanted books in English. So we were able to send almost 1,500 books to this school. We filled up their shelves. And then there was a middle school, another one, Metsea Buffalo, I think the name was. And they sent the rest of the books they sent to them, and they sent pictures of the children, carrying the book boxes, little ones. That was so exciting. So I think my whole Fulbright, that was like the crowning achievement for me for that Fulbright. I think sending the books was absolutely the highlight, being able to do that for the kids in the school there, and they sent us a note, and they've actually put up a plaque outside that says thank you to Nazareth College for the books, so that's still up there.
That's the kind of impact that extends far beyond a single year. Those books are still being read by South African children today. Mary Lawrence went to Germany in 2016 as an English teaching assistant, and she specifically requested placement in the former East Germany.
And I really was interested in the history and culture of the former East. So I decided to apply to Eastern states. So my ranking was Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, which is way in the Northeast on the Baltic coast, Saxony, which is also in the West but more central, close to the Czech Republic. And then since I also speak French, I had my last choice be in the West, in the Alsace area. And I was successful in my first choice because it turns out no one else really wanted to go to Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. I think I was actually the only person among like the 120 or so Fulbright grantees who actually went to Germany my year. I think I was the only one who listed Mecklenburg as my first choice. So I got placed there. It is very rural. Like there are two larger university cities that are pretty cool. Rostock is very, very cool. And I lived in like a smaller city, had about 27,000 people living there. So I was placed in a high school and middle school, so a gymnasium, and it was the Jon Brinkmann Gymnasium in Güstrow, Germany, which is about a half hour south of Rostock and 2 hours north of Berlin. So it was very close to the Baltic coast.
Mary's experience in rural former East Germany gave her perspectives she wouldn't have gotten in Berlin or Munich, including witnessing far-right sentiments and anti-immigrant rallies during the 2016 refugee crisis. These weren't comfortable experiences, but they were educational. Every Fulbright recipient we spoke with described their experiences as transformative. But what does that actually mean? Let's dig deeper into the challenges and growth these scholars experienced. Shannon Olsen, who went to Sweden in 1999 to study chemical ecology, captures the vulnerability of the experience.
Probably imagine that it was not as easy to find information out. There were search engines and stuff like that. There was the World Wide Web, but it was still kind of hard to utilize it. Mm-hmm. So, so I asked a lot of people about Sweden, and I got some really interesting ideas. I was told that nobody uses deodorant in Europe, which is completely not true. I heard they didn't use toilet paper, like all these weird things. So I had no idea what to expect. And so I brought a lot of deodorant, and I'll tell you that first. I had luggage packed with deodorant, which is really weird. Okay, so then I came over there, and of course there was like normal grocery stores, just like there is anywhere. I mean, there were so many things I didn't know. But I was really petrified flying over there because I'd never been overseas, and I was going there by myself, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't speak Swedish. I didn't have any relatives there. I remember the flight attendant sitting down and holding my hand because she could tell how nervous and scared I was to actually move and go on this adventure. Yeah, it was, I was excited, right? But I was really, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Was it going to be a country with no toilet paper? I had no idea.
Shannon brought deodorant in her luggage because she'd heard, incorrectly, that nobody in Europe used it. These fears seem quaint now, but they speak to the real courage required to step into the unknown. Edward Thader, who went to Germany in 2001-2002, had an even more dramatic start.
I was actually supposed to fly to Germany on September 11th, 01, packing my bags because, I don't know if you've been to Europe before, but they usually do a night flight. So you fly overnight and you end up arriving with a time difference in the flight. You end up arriving in the morning. And I was supposed to fly I lived in Syracuse. I was supposed to fly out of Syracuse to JFK about 3 in the afternoon. And I'm finishing my last packing the bags. And then we watched it happen on live. And I said, never mind, I'm stopped packing. I'm not going anywhere today.
Edward arrived in Germany just as the war on terror was beginning.
There was certainly a level of anti-American sentiment that was happening. Not overtly, not terribly. Certainly, it was an interesting time to be an American abroad. When everything's going on at home and there's like all this national unity and everything else, and I'm living abroad, it was certainly an interesting perspective from that. Like I got to see the aftermath and everything from a global perspective.
These challenges weren't just logistical, they were deeply personal. Jamie Lipka described arriving without speaking the language.
Most of us didn't know anything at all. We came over and we were learning the alphabet and food and left and right and colors and stuff like that. But it was a good program. They had teachers from one of the universities in Seoul come and stay with us. We were in a little college campus, and we took a lot of language classes every day.
And yet these challenges led to profound growth. Jessica Teddy, who went to Columbia in 2012, learned about cross-cultural listening.
Just the importance of cross-cultural listening, and learning about Columbia's culture and history. Columbia had a civil war for over 50 years, which really shaped the perspectives of many people there. And as with many conflicts in Latin America, the U.S. played a part. And so I experienced firsthand how, people have a negative view, not everybody, but there is negative sentiment about the U.S. And I know from living here that people have negative sentiments of some Latin American countries, including Colombia, for, maybe stereotypical reasons. And so there's misunderstanding on both parts, and people know so little about other countries. Like, for example, people can't even spell Colombia correctly. So it's been my mission to continue to be a cultural ambassador and try to dispel the negative and uninformed views of Latin American countries, including Colombia, and the people who are from there, those negative views that exist in the U.S.
Notice how Jessica frames this, not as defending America, but as promoting understanding in both directions. That's the essence of cultural exchange. So how did these Fulbright experiences shape careers and life trajectories? The answers are as diverse as the destinations. Remember Eric Eggleston, who studied Islamic education movements in India? Here's where he is now.
Current role, a diplomat with the State Department.
From that year in India, studying cross-cultural dialogue to a career in diplomacy, the connection is direct. Eric traces it back.
There were some seeds planted to potentially join the State Department way back in Fulbright, and as the cultural attaché, hosted Thanksgiving dinner, and it's there's a connection with the public diplomacy section of an embassy that we had, and kind of got a flavor for it, and really was impressed by the individual in the position, and that kind of lodged in my brain.
Shannon Olson's trajectory is equally remarkable. That research in Sweden on how organisms communicate chemically, it's become her life's work.
This idea of how animals can communicate and organisms can communicate with chemicals. That thing that I studied, it's what I ended up why I ended up applying to Cornell was because it's the only university that had a degree in this subject at the time. So the subject is called chemical ecology. Okay, and that's the field that studies how organisms use chemistry to communicate with each other. Okay, so I actually went to Cornell because of the work that I'd done with my Fulbright. And then after that, I went to California. I went to UCLA and I studied chemical ecology. And then after that, I went to Germany and I worked at something called a Max Planck Institute. And then after that, I moved to India. And all of those things had to do with the same topic, the same research subject that started with my Fulbright. So I can't think of a greater impact than that.
Shanna now runs the ECHO Network, connecting organizations across 46 countries to solve environmental problems through better communication and collaboration. Mary Lawrence found an unexpected path combining her language skills with information science.
Now, actually, I am the librarian for Western European Studies with a focus on Germanic languages and literatures at the University of Michigan. And I was able to draw on my experience from Fulbright to position like this that has brought together so many pieces of my background, and it still do when I'm in the classroom working with instruction sessions. I draw on that experience of having been in a classroom before and how to structure curriculum, how to work with other instructors. I've had to team teach before when I was on my Fulbright, and now I get to do that again.
Dr. Scott Campbell's experience in Hungary led to something even more ambitious, an ongoing partnership.
We've been bringing students now to Hungary for many years. And those students also give papers at this conference. So it's both a student conference and a faculty conference. Our students give presentations on American studies, and the Hungarian students also give presentations on American studies. And it is just a fantastic experience. I know that this interview is not on television. I have picture books going back years and years. I think I've probably brought 60, 70 students from Nazareth to Hungary to give presentations at it's called the America Week.
Think about that. A single Fulbright experience in 2008 has now touched hundreds through nearly 2 decades of ongoing exchange. As we wrap up, I want to share the advice these Fulbrighters have for future applicants, advice that feels especially urgent given current uncertainties about the program's funding. Jamie Lipka, speaking from South Korea.
Stay focused on the benefits of study abroad and programs like this where you're helping America build a relationship with these other countries. It's incredible. Everyone benefits all around the world, I think. So I really hope that I hope people continue to participate in these programs and aren't deterred by the funding drought that sometimes happens inevitably.
Eric Eggleston emphasized making the most of the experience.
Make the most of it. I've lived abroad for the better part of the last 10 years now, in addition to Fulbright and my time as a student in Egypt and the UK. And I think it's really easy for some people to, get hung up on the things that are hard. A lot of everyday things are harder than they would be back home. They let the negative color their experience. But as with most experiences, I firmly believe that your time abroad is what you make of it. And if you're not happy with the way it's going, change it. But don't let the challenges overshadow the other aspects, because whatever your purpose of being there, studying that culture, studying your own, studying yourself are definitely the things that make life worth doing. So I'm all for it, and I say just absolutely do it. if you have the opportunity, whether it's Fulbright, whether it's Boren, whether it's just going to take the plunge and go do a thing, study abroad.
And Mary Lawrence offered this beautiful insight into building community.
Let yourself be there. Make friends. Make a community, even though you know that you're going to leave. by the time I got to Germany, like by the time I moved to Germany, I'd had a few, had a few other experiences. And when I went to France, I was like, well, I'm only here for 4 months. Like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to make friends because I'm just gonna be leaving. But um, that sucks. So when I went to Germany, I was like, you know what? I want to be devastated when I move away. Like, I am here now. I want to be so integrated into this community that I'm sad to leave. I think that's something that I would like to pass on is like, yeah, get so involved that it is hard to move on and that you're moving on because you know it's the right next thing. You never know when those connections are going to come up again. I still spend time with my friends who I lived with in Germany.
Dr. Poonam Dev, reflecting on her experiences in South Africa, offered wisdom about impact.
One thing it taught me is that it's not possible for me to solve every single problem that everyone has. I wish I could. I mean, I wish I could, be like I don't know, Harry Potter or something, and just wave a wand and everything would be okay. But it's, practically that's not going to happen. So what it taught me is that if I can do I can make a difference in one little corner of the world, like to use my analogy, is fill up one little library. That's good enough. That'll have its own effect and it'll have its own impact on current and future generations.
And finally, Shannon Olson captured the essence of the Fulbright mission.
It's a phenomenal experience, the Fulbright program. It's a year of your life where you get to experience a new culture, you get to learn from them, you get to share your culture, you act as an ambassador for your college, you act as an ambassador for your country. And I think this is a really unique opportunity that many people don't get. And I think it really, I think you'll probably hear this from everybody, but it for sure changed my life and for the better.
The Nazareth University Fulbright story is ultimately about transformation, personal, professional, and cultural. It's about a small liberal arts university that created a culture of global engagement where studying abroad wasn't an exception, but an expectation. It's about faculty like Dr. Mark Madigan, Dr. Joe Kelly, Dr. William Hopkins, and others who spent countless hours helping students refine applications, offering encouragement, and believing in possibilities. It's about students who took risks, who got on planes even when they were terrified, who struggled with a new language and culture, who faced prejudice and misunderstanding, and who came back changed. And it's about the ripple effects, the thousands of books in South African library, the decade-plus partnership between students in Hungary, the diplomats promoting understanding, the scientists solving environmental problems, the teachers fostering cross-cultural dialogue. As we recorded these interviews in late 2024 and 2025, several recipients expressed concern about the future of the Fulbright program amid proposed funding cuts. But their stories demonstrate why this program matters, not just for individual transformation, but for building the kind of world where people listen to each other across differences. Mary Lawrence put it perfectly when she said she hopes future Fulbrighters exist at all, because these experiences don't just benefit the individuals who receive them, they benefit all of us. The Nazareth Fulbright legacy proves that small institutions can have outsized impact when they commit to global engagement. It shows that careful mentoring matters, and it demonstrates that international exchange, when done thoughtfully, creates lifelong ambassadors who work to build understanding in an oft-divided world. Thanks for listening to this special episode of the Centennial History Podcast. You can find transcripts of the full interviews and more information about Nazareth University Fulbright on a future website dedicated to the Nazareth Fulbright experience. If you're a student considering applying for a Fulbright or a faculty member who can support someone through the process, I hope these stories inspire you to take the leap. Thanks to our interviewers. Those include Olivia Frank and Amelia Burm and Yulia Lauer. We also thank you, the listener. If you like what you hear, let us know. You can like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, and love it if you'd leave us a review. Thank you, and until next time.